Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education by Kate Colbert and Joe Salustio with contributions by Elvin Freites is now available for pre-order on Amazon. Get your Kindle edition or your softbound book. It's going to be
amazing.
Lead Squared is a cutting-edge CRM platform for enrollment management. With Lead Squared, you will deliver a seamless student experience, streamline admissions processes, lower costs, and increase retention. Schedule a demo at leadsquared.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode. Officially today, we literally have 400. When you guys hear this, it'll be a couple weeks from now. But this is the day that it's kind of like the calm before the storm. 499 published episodes of this podcast. 500 comes out tomorrow, which again will be 2 weeks ago by the time you hear this. But I'm pretty excited about that. 500. I don't think I've done every one of the 500 episodes, but I'm pretty sure I've done at least 470 or 480 of them. There's a few in there that I may have missed at one time or another. And you think about producing something like this over that period of time, being able to interview 500 college and university leaders and leaders within business and industry. And what do we do with this content? We always ask ourselves that. Well, as you know, if you listen to this podcast, we're writing a book called Commencement, the beginning of a new era of higher education. This is where I do the self-gratuitous plugging and tell you that we would really like it if you'd order our book. It's up for pre-order, comes out October 18th, and we're going to take over 100 interviews from college and university presidents and distill those themes down into something that's readable and fun and quotable and kind of bullish about the future of higher education, be honest with you. And that in light of recent news from the Biden administration that student loans would be forgiven for many, many, many people. Lots of stipulations around that. I am not a huge proponent of loan forgiveness. I think somebody always pays. And in this case, it'll be the American taxpayer footing the bill. So it's kind of like pushing responsibility from one person to another. But I'm not going to soapbox. What I am going to do is bring in a good friend of mine. You know, one of the big benefits of doing this podcast is that I get to co-host with people that I know, that I've known for I don't know how long time. I knew this gentleman back when, I think I was just starting out in higher ed. It must have been 20 years ago by the time when we first met. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He's Joe Lindhart, and he's a senior account executive with Advanced 360 Education. Joe, what is happening?
What's happening, Joe? It's great to see you, man. I got to tell you, just a little plug for myself here. My birthday is October 18th. So,
wow.
I'll expect a copy to come out.
On your 60th birthday, we'll be releasing our book, Joe.
Oh,
well, all right. You're not that old yet. Joe, I remember back in the day, I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, you released your own book called Impact, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And, no, that was the name of your company. I can't remember the name of the book. It could have been Impact. Same. Mm-hmm. And you came and did like a keynote speaking event to my reps at the time at my old career college and talked all about student service and, I don't know, marketing and treating the customer with respect. And I think that was a long time ago. Do you remember that?
I do. That was a blast over in that old building in Denver. And it's just always fun to talk to admissions folks and admissions leaders. I think you were having a leadership retreat or something. And
yeah.
And so, I really like to talk about people first leadership and servant leadership. And those oftentimes what I get into is, so.
I know you do. And people can check you out, of course, on LinkedIn. And you've been putting out a series of episodes about leadership that, I like to catch, where you kind of give your insight. And I appreciate you doing that. I think a lot of people, one of the things that in higher ed that we don't focus as much as we should on is those kind of general leadership concepts. We always talk about higher ed and the student, but we still have to lead others, don't we?
Absolutely. And I, I've always believed that leadership is influence, and I've always been passionate about the encouragement side of it. And so that's just right now, I'm not leading a large team like I'm used to leading. I'm leading myself in my current role with A360.
That's got to be a hard job leading you, Joe. Every day.
My wife will tell you that's true.
We all have a leader. We all have somebody to report to.
But so to be able to put out some influence, to influence young leaders and to kind of stay in the game is fun for me. I'm passionate about it. So,
well, speaking of leadership and influence, we are honored to bring you a first-time guest on the EdUp Experience. He'll be in the low 500s somewhere when we release his episode. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Tim Kalil, and he is president at ACI Learning. Tim, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Now, Tim, you know Joe, and I know Joe, and now I know you, but I didn't know you, even though we were all connected to all sorts of things back in the day throughout higher ed.
Yeah, small world, the education space. You tend to meet a lot of great people that have similar interests, that are passionate about meeting other great people. So it's a small world.
It is. And so, Tim, we always like to level set. ACI Learning, what is it? So what do you guys do, and how do you do it?
Now, that is a loaded question because we are doing a lot of great stuff right now. First off, ACI Learning, it stands for Audit, Cyber, and IT. Those are the three content areas that we play in. That's where we've specialized and focus on bringing value to our end markets, whether it be a consumer looking to launch their career, professional that's looking for continuing education credits or additional certifications, or an enterprise looking to solve business problems. We also serve our channel and partner network with content, virtual labs, and curriculum to augment what they're doing, whether it be a college and university or another training provider, because as you know, the rate of change in IT and cybersecurity is pretty fast. And so having the most relevant, most up-to-date materials, certification-based content is something that some of our frenemies, I would say, struggle to keep up with. And so we also, on top of being an education provider, we're also a content provider.
We push the limits of science and technology.
Love it. Tim, it's funny. You're an education provider in the three fast-moving kind of industries, IT, cyber, audit, where curriculum has to be updated all the time, right? You think just about cyber. People all across the land have said that higher ed in particular, education in particular, is just one of those industries that is so ripe for cyber attacks. We've seen schools close. There's actually one, where was it, Missouri or maybe Illinois, that closed recently. It got hit 2 years ago by a cyber attack, never recovered, it closed. So education's really, that's the word I'm looking for. Just it's a sensitive kind of industry, and there are many others. So cybersecurity in particular has been growing in all sorts of ways. Talk about cybersecurity from an interest perspective. You have a lot of students come in, go and look, or a lot of businesses coming in and say, where's the demand? The student side, the business side, and then you're connecting?
Short answer would be all of the above.
Yes is the short answer.
Yeah, and we deliver.
Yes.
Yeah, a few different flavors, right? If you talk to the IT department, they'll say the end users are the problem. If you talk to the leadership team, they're not sure if it's the IT department or the end users or both. And so we've done some really fun things with cybersecurity end user training. Sort of inspired by forensic files, we created this cinematic learning experience we're calling Cyber Autopsy. That's sort of a Netflix-like experience where we train end users at organizations in 20 to 30-minute episodes where they feel like they're watching TV, but they're actually learning what happened with the Twitter attack and what came out of that, and what are some of the things that the end users did wrong to enable access to the network. And then on the deep IT side of things, we're also teaching people to attack their own network and look for vulnerabilities within their own network so that they can find the gaps and the holes before someone else does.
By the way, vulnerable was the word I was looking for. I couldn't find it. Thank you for bringing it to me. Joe Linhart, you want to take over?
Sure. Tim, I think you know this about me. I'm a huge fan of skills training and short-term, quick programs and the trades.
Level up.
I'm just curious, man, with the way things are going in higher ed, the change that we're seeing in the climate right now, how is that impacting your business, and is it driving your business?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're not a college or university, right? We're, if you had to classify us on the consumer side, it would be as a vocational school. Everything is weeks or months as opposed to months or years. And what we've been working on over the years is sort of blending the perfect mix of the higher ed experience with the corporate training experience and trying to put ourselves right in the middle of that. And so you'll see, our programs are 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and they're geared towards IT certifications, which are in high demand from the labor market and hiring opportunities. But we've taken it a step further to get those articulated into colleges as transfer credits. So ACI Learning is part of the American Council on Education network, where our programs have been vetted for college alternative credits. And one big thing we're working on right now that we're about 12 months into already is national accreditation. So we're in about 2/3 of the way through the process with ACCET or ASSET, which will sort of level us up one more level in terms of rigor and quality, and will open some additional doors for us to serve more students and create more outcomes. At the end of the day, that's what it all comes back to for us, is to create outcomes that impact lives.
Yeah, I love that. I would have imagined that with the climate being the way it is, and I know I've got a 24-year-old, and he wasn't a big fan of college at all. And so many of these young people now are changing their tune, and they're starting businesses, and they're going and getting certifications. And I just wonder, Joe and I were talking yesterday, we followed we would call it the high school program or the high school market for years. And I just wondered, kind of aloud, I wonder if you can envision more high school graduates coming your way instead of going the traditional route as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, I'm a big fan of college degrees. I've got my master's degree myself, and I think there's a time and place for, different types of education. We encourage the consumer students that enroll in our programs. We encourage them to continue with their education, to build on what they're getting from us and into a bachelor's degree and potentially a master's degree. But what we're seeing in the IT and cyberspace is those entry level opportunities are not requiring a degree, and they're not, requiring the 4 years of English and math and science. And so what we've tried to position ourselves is sort of that shot in the arm jolt into a career where instead of paying student loans for years, you're earning, you're working within the first year. And then, with our graduates, we're always encouraging them to ask about their company's tuition reimbursement program, their tuition assistance program. So if they want to advance into leadership and management, that, ideally they can grow within the company we help them land at and not become riddled with college debt based on a 4-year degree and then struggling to gain an entry-level IT job because they don't have the certifications that more and more employers are requiring these days.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I'm just excited for guys like you that your business now probably can serve a lot more people because this generation is so open, to not going the traditional route, or maybe, like you said, picking up later.
Absolutely. And part of what the accreditation piece will do for us is I think build a bit more trust with sort of the parents of these youth and young adults that, maybe have heard some stories from 10, 20, 30 years ago about vocational schools. The level of rigor and the level of value has just exponentially increased over the years, and ACI has been very mindful of aligning its programs with globally recognized certifications as opposed to a certificate that is not worth much more than the piece of paper it was printed on. And so, that's one of our key missions as we go forward, is to continue, strengthening our value proposition, but also, opening up that young adult market, because, I ask myself once a year or more, if my nephew wanted to break into IT, would I pay for it out of my own pocket for him to come here? And if the answer isn't yes, I've got a big problem to fix, or I need to go work somewhere else. And every year that answer has been a definitive yes.
That's a good point, right? You think about if you have a kid and you put them through all of the processes that it takes to get into learning or your college or your business and go, would I let my kid be subject to this, or why wouldn't I change this or change that? It kind of gives you it's a really interesting perspective the way you said that. And want to go back just quickly to what you talked about going after national accreditation. Of course, it'll bring a certain level of legitimacy and communicate what you do in a way that the consumer will understand, but it also opens you up to Title IV. Are you going after Title IV at all for any of your programs?
Currently, we are not planning to go after and open up to Title IV at this point in time. So, our executive leadership team has over 100 years of experience in higher ed, and there are certainly some pros and benefits that come from opening up to Title IV, but there's also, more stringent requirements that aren't always in the best interest of the student or the business that can be limiting as well. So our current path forward is not towards Title IV funding, but we are excited about some of the grant programs that it opens us up to. We just applied for $1 million grant last week out of the state of Florida towards a cybersecurity apprenticeship program. And so if we were to achieve that request that we submitted for, 100% of those grant funds would go towards the sponsoring of students out of the state of Florida that are interested in our cyber apprenticeship program. That's one of the other things we're really excited about. We've got our Florida approval in the works, and we've recently been approved in Colorado and Texas with our apprenticeship, and the standards for the national application of that. So we're only a couple months in on this, but we've been marinating on the apprenticeship model for quite some time because it's been a hot topic for a long time, but I don't feel like we've really cracked the code in America on this. We learned a lot of great lessons from our UK team members. We recently acquired Practice Labs about a year ago, which is a virtual lab company that is based in London, that partners with a lot of colleges and universities, and has had some significant experience in apprenticeship that we've been able to sort of bring over to the US. And so we've modeled our apprenticeship around 4 hours a day you're in school with us, and 4 hours a day you're starting day one in your new job. So at the end of 2 months, when you finish your program, you're already 2 months into working part-time at your employer. And so we're early days in this, but we've got 7 employers secured and another 4 that we're looking to onboard here in the coming weeks that have all committed to hiring 5 or more apprentices per quarter as we move forward. So that's another one of our big bets or our investments is around cracking the code on apprenticeship.
Epic.
What does that mean exactly, cracking the code on apprenticeships? Does that, when you say that, is it because, I'm going to say we, or institutions of higher learning, whether you're credit, non-credit, doesn't matter, that we haven't figured out how to integrate internships within the regular workforce, so the day of work, and how somebody can do both at the same time, right? Because a lot of times learning and work are built separately, which is one of the bridges we're trying to connect in higher education or education in general. How do we connect workforce with education, make sure that the speed is the same, that the relevance is the same? Is that what you mean by cracking the code on apprenticeships?
Yeah, it depends which audience, right? If you're talking to the employers, and especially around IT and cyber, one of the challenges they have is speed. I need folks next week. I need folks next month. And if you're all talking to the employers about apprenticeship, they're also sort of bogged down and struggling with the continuing ed requirements. And so one of the other acquisitions we made 2 years ago was a company by the name of IT Pro TV, video on demand platform, subscription learning, and so bringing together all of our solutions, a student going through a 2-month virtual instructor-led program, 4 hours a day, working 4 hours a day. At that graduation point, they're now moving full-time, but they have an ongoing learning path within our subscription platform. And so that ongoing education requirement that a lot of these companies may not know how to structure to meet the apprenticeship goals, that kind of because it goes for 12 months, right? So there's another 10 months of the apprenticeship where they're working full time, but they need some level of ongoing education happening too. And so what we've tried to do is make it simple and easy, whether you're the student, the employer, or the grant program that may be funding some of the students that are going through this, to sort of be that centralized management layer of the apprenticeship program, making it easier for everyone to say yes and for everyone to execute on it. And so apprenticeship by all means is working in some areas, but what we're seeing, and what we're hearing is, how long is it going to take? Well, how do we do this? How do we do that? It's this daunting, word to a company where they're like, that seems like a lot of work, and it's not something we know how to do or we're used to doing. And so wrapping sort of the solution in a box around it, we're seeing a lot of traction here.
The Lead Squared integrated CRM functionality will put your institution at the front end of marketing and enrollment strategy by delivering a streamlined admissions process. Capture student interest, segment your audience, create student engagement workflows, and even integrate with your student information system to create longitudinal key performance metrics you've always wanted. You can do all of this and lower your technology costs. Check out leadsquared.com for more info.
Yeah, because you'd figure the company says, well, look, if you can bring me the qualified people, I'll figure out the internship or the apprenticeship piece because I can't find people to hire anyway. I mean, there's got to be a huge benefit to cut down costs of hiring. Retention probably goes up for employees because they're in the apprenticeship programs. So there's a lot of benefits for the employer too, which I think, which I know is why organizations like ACI Learning and watching your growth is a big piece, right? Because there's employer service that's a part of this. And Joe, over to you, because I'm monopolizing here. If there's, but I can guarantee you one thing: there's going to be a Joe hosting this episode at all times.
I love it. Hey man, it's a team effort. So I just love that kind of 4+4, apprentice effort that you've got, to that model you've built. Just as kind of a career ed guy my whole life, I can totally get into that model. But one of the things I've always been passionate about, and I think Joe shares this, and you and I, Tim, haven't talked a lot about this, is training military personnel. And I just wonder kind of where you guys stand on supporting our military, and offering them those training solutions that they need so much. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for starters, very, very passionate about it. To be able to serve those that have served our country, no better honor in the work world for me than to be able to stand behind our product and create outcomes. And we are a VA authorized school for GI Bill, Chapter 31 BR&E. We were one of the first, I think, three to five schools in the nation approved for the vet tech program, which I believe is in year 5 at this point.
Wonderful.
So we've been sort of helping to shape that program a bit. I think last I saw, we were the #1 school in the nation in terms of successful employment outcomes coming out of the vet tech program. Very, very excited about that. And also the VRAP program is another great one, which is unfortunately coming to an end at the end of this year, but it was part of Biden's stimulus recovery plan. So we've sort of, built our model to a certain extent around making sure that not only can we support veterans' education, but also their employment. Coming out with sometimes a secret clearance or top secret clearance for a veteran to be able to pair that with a Security Plus certification from our program makes them extremely employable, especially in the Department of Defense space, the government contracting space. So we work with a number of the large DoD providers to sort of pipeline their talent needs with the hardworking veterans that choose to enroll at ACI Learning. And part of this too is, I forget how many years ago, 7-8 years ago, we decided, hey, we're going to double and triple down on career services. And so as it sits today, I believe we have a team of 16 professionals in our career services department. 2/3 of them are focused on sort of the job readiness side of things. the coaching, the mock interviews, the LinkedIn profile, all that job ready stuff they work with our students on. And then the other third of our team within career services is focused primarily on the employer relationships. We put on, exclusive hiring events for each of our cohorts to have a chance to interview for real jobs with, 3 to 5 of our employer partners. So they're getting early reps at high stakes interviews, but also many of them are getting hired, on graduation day at the end of month 2 to go straight to work. So at the end of the day, what we're doing with the veteran space largely comes back to, I want a job, I want a career, I need some help figuring out what that is. And so we've sort of reverse engineered our model around the career outcome being the finish line, not the last day of class, not the graduation or the certification, but that finish line is truly, I have an awesome job.
Yeah, taking it that next step. That's awesome. Man,
Brett,
that makes me
can I interrupt Joe just for one sec?
Of course.
A quick follow-up, because you're kind of on the outside looking in, meaning you're providing higher education, but in what we consider the traditional nature of higher education, like Carnegie credit hours and all this. You're outside of that right now looking in, but you talked about credit transfer. You talked about getting certifications recognized so that student can transfer into a university. How difficult, I don't know how to ask the question the right way. How easy is it, might be, or how difficult is it, depending on which way you want to take it, for institutions to go, oh yes, this makes sense. You know what, Tim, great meeting. We're going to take all the transfer credits from all the military students that you have doing cyber. We're going to start tomorrow. I would imagine it's a little bit slower than that.
Yeah, that was part of what started us on the journey for ACE, which are the credit recommendations for our programs, because within the ACE network of schools, there's sort of a mutual recognition of, if ACE says this program's worth that, then we'll accept it, because ACE, a nonprofit association, has sort of put their stamp of approval on it. And so we have that for each of our programs, which is great, but we've chosen to take it one step further, especially where we have our physical learning hubs, Dallas, San Antonio, Colorado Springs, Denver, Jacksonville, Florida, to build relationships with a few local colleges and universities as well. And ACE has proved as sort of a jumping off point for Colorado, CSU Global, for example. ACE says this, here's what this looks like. Let's actually map those towards your IT degrees to make it even easier for a student that finishes your program, goes to work, but then wants to pursue a degree, to have sort of a stronger likelihood, as close to a guarantee as you can probably get, to getting those transfer credits accepted.
Yeah, I merely asked that to point out how hard we make transfer credit stuff in higher ed, and it's like this unspoken thing, we can make it. Anybody who's listening to this, if you want to make credit transfer easy, you can accept whatever you want. We make it really, really hard. We make it really hard. We go, it doesn't match up exactly. So we're not going to take this 3 credits from this student who worked their ass off to get these 3 credits. It's really something else.
I wouldn't disagree with you, Joe.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to, you're doing a very good job not saying it like me either. So I'll get, but I guess I get to say it in that way. It's really one of the mysterious things of higher education is credit transfer. Joe, sorry to interrupt you there, man.
Yeah, it's a bit of a black hole, in my opinion. It's always been frustrating for me. So we talked about a number of great segments of your student body, I guess. We talked about military and high school. We talked about folks that are looking to learn new skills, that are maybe they're unemployed, maybe they're in transition right now. I'm wondering about the businesses right now that want to train their employees or give them extra training, extra certifications, maybe your approach to sort of business to business, and what your thoughts are there right now.
Yeah, so there's 2 primary ways that we serve businesses today for their incumbent workers, their career pathing, their career progression. One is through virtual live training or even on-site training, where we'll bring an expert trainer in to teach a private group of their employees on a skill, on a topic, to prepare for a certification, to prepare for an upcoming technology migration, whatever that may be. So we do a good amount of private group training that we can tailor or customize. The other way that we're serving enterprises from a learning standpoint is through our subscription products. We have a IT Pro subscription that has over 6,000 hours of content in a video on demand platform. And the way we've differentiated that is we have a very unique delivery of that. Every course is essentially like watching SportsCenter, two-speaker talk show. We've got our cinematic series. We've got our light boards and whiteboards, and our video wall where we're, I think we're 12 feet by 8 feet, almost like you'd see on the Weather Channel. So our subscription products are very unique. We've got 8 world-class studios in Gainesville in our production headquarters that we use to film every day. I think every day we're creating between 2 to 4 hours of new content and or updating existing content to make sure it stays relevant. So we've actually trademarked the term edutainment, which is a combination of education and entertainment, because the original thesis on our subscription products is that let's create the training we wish we had growing up, as opposed to some of the maybe point and click voiceover e-learning that's out there that gets stale if you're trying to listen and watch 40 hours of it, 80 hours of it in a year.
I'll tell you, I've taken to following your CEO on LinkedIn, and he pushes content out all the time. And the team is doing a great job at producing just really innovative stuff.
Yeah. So I talked briefly about the IT Pro subscription, which really includes IT and cyber. One of the products we brought to market last year was our first audit subscription. So Audit Pro. The version 1 of it's very focused on internal auditing. And we went through NASBA for the continuing education credits. We're one of 10% of NASBA approved providers now that has an online self-paced subscription. And we're still early days. We've been in market with that for just over a year, but excited to share that we have a 100% renewal on the yearly subscription from our first handful of clients. So that's been really well.
What was that, Tim? Say what was that renewal again?
100.
100%.
All right, just want to double down on that.
Yeah, and so as we continue to invest in our Audit Pro subscription, you'll start to see more compliance-based standards going into it, as a little bit more focus on IT audit. It's to round out the internal audit side of things, and a product we're launching here, might be spilling the beans on this, but we're launching an end user Skills Pro product here in the coming weeks to month that is going to focus on 2 main areas. One is cybersecurity awareness training, and 2 is productivity with applications. And very excited about that. You'll see some news come out on that in the near future. But the part of the thesis of that is the clients we're training on IT and cyber are telling us more and more that, we're solid, but we can't get our end users to quit clicking on this or giving that up or so a lot of times, when you look at these cyber breaches, it's the result of an end user doing something that allows access to the network, that
there's some pretty
how
sophisticated
IT sets it up. If we can't also train the end users to have good practices and hygiene with their internet access, the IT department's sort of powerless to a certain extent.
There's very sophisticated phishing things that go on, and it's always an end user clicking some kind of something they shouldn't, that does a lot of things to the network. It's discussed all the time. I know my university, and I know I have a lot of colleagues that is where it's at, right? You could put in the best securities in the world, but it's the end user that doesn't know what they're doing, that clicks something that brings a whole network down.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what.
And I can't give away too much on what our big projects are, but I will say the word for next year is insight. That's what all of our long-term bigger projects are focused on, is delivering more insight so that we're connecting, learning needs and learning outcomes to business insights to create intelligence for our clients.
Awesome. Joe, Joe Linhart, any kind of, you want to slide in the last question if you have any? Otherwise, I'll give Tim our last two and we'll take it home.
Yeah, just a really quick one, Tim, just to kind of, it sounds like it's really becoming a great place to work. And I'm just wondering, in a time when it's hard to find great talent and staff, and, have you found it challenging to fill openings within the company? And B, people want to come to work with ACI, how can they do it?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we certainly haven't been immune to, I think what we're calling the Great Resignation. We have added a lot of team members over the years. From the early days, I think I was employee number 11 or so, and I think we're just over 300 employees today.
Wow.
So we do focus a lot on culture, core values, recognition, appreciation, transparency. We're very dedicated to doing our town halls on a monthly basis and fielding cute questions from our team, quarterly engagement surveys. It's a great place to work. It's something that we're focused on day in and day out, is how to keep making it a great place to work or make it an even better place to work. We've had, probably the similar challenges to most organizations of keeping your top talent and attracting new talent, but I think we're ahead of the curve on that. There's one thing I wanted to share that we haven't got to yet. Can I introduce one new topic here?
This is your episode, my friend. You can do whatever you want.
Well, I appreciate that. So, depending on the audience here, one of the things that we're doing that I think is less known and extremely valuable is our channel and partner network. If you're a college or university offering IT programs, cybersecurity programs, and maybe you have the curriculum, but your students aren't getting a hands-on experience practicing. We partner with a lot of colleges and universities to provide virtual labs for Microsoft or Cisco or vendor-neutral topics, CompTIA, EC Council, so that their students can not only learn in theory, but then have a virtual lab environment to access, to practice, to work in. We have college and university partnerships that are using our video on demand that they plug in as part of the curriculum to reinforce what students may be hearing from a professor, but they pair it up with 20 hours or 40 hours of video on demand content that is geared towards passing a certification. And so if you're a training provider or a college or university scratching your head wondering, how do we keep up with the rate of change of the content of the curriculum, of the lab environment, because we know we need to get more of our curriculum geared towards certifications. That's our bailiwick, that's our wheelhouse, and we're helping a number of colleges and universities already to sort of augment or supplement their resources with our world-class resources to strengthen their value proposition, to strengthen their outcomes, and to help their learners not just earn degrees, but also certifications.
That's great, because I could think of a number of universities that I've spoken to, presidents of universities I've spoken to. I go, oh, you got to connect with, I don't know, you might be connected with Dr. Brad Sims. He's at Capital, what's it, Capital Technology University. It's in DC. They teach a ton of cybersecurity and programs, and we can make intros all day long. I hope I didn't get your college name wrong, Brad. You can kill me later because I know you listen to the podcast. But I was going to ask you, Tim, two questions that we always ask every guest. What did we miss about ACI Learning? So you covered that one pretty well. Two, what do you see as the future of higher education in general?
Well, that's a loaded question, Joe. I almost want to turn around and ask you, what do you see?
That's not your role here, Tim. You get
I know
you get to be quoted and put into social media. I just asked the question. No, we're not going to put you in social media.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the future is, first of all, I think it's evolving. I think, the college I went to, the experience I had, you had, others had, it's as it's a little too similar to what folks are experiencing today. I think the blended learning experience is taking off in some ways, where there's a bit more on your own and more discussion and work projects. The more you can tie, the more we can tie education to what it's like to work in the job, in the career. I think that's a really good guiding light for the industry as a whole. As much fun as we've all had writing 20-page papers, I can't remember the last time I wrote a 20-page paper for my job, right? So, I do think there's some benefits to the college experience that people sort of overlook at times, like learning how to learn, learning how to be accountable, learning how to, be an adult, be a professional. But I one of the things I would say looking forward is the more practical application we can have in education that can be more relatable and transferable into the workforce, the better position we'll be in.
Yes.
Joe, any final thoughts, my friend, before we sail into the sunset here?
No, I agree. And in short, I think we're just living in an era of change right now, and we're so polarized in this country. And I think that impacts education, right? And I think education is going to continue to splinter off. And I'm not sure that we've seen the innovation yet that's going to shape the future. But I do think much more attention on skilled training in the trades and, job ready majors that are I think are going to take hold in this country moving forward. And we've got to get a hold of the costs clearly across the board. So,
Tim, if we got a college university representative listening here today and go, man, I think we ought to partner with ACI Learning because they've got a great pipeline of students who are doing great training. I want them in my degrees. How do we contact you? Where do we contact you?
Well, easiest place would be acilearning.com. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Tim Kalil, Kalil. Another great person to connect with would be our Chief Product Officer, Dr. Duke, Duke. We'll either help you ourselves or we'll get you pointed to the right team member to see what we can do.
And that's a good reminder to always, ladies and gentlemen, if there's one podcast tip I can give you, always ask your guests how to say their last name before you start the episode, because obviously I pronounced his last name wrong. I never edit out my mistakes for the record, so I'm going to keep that one in and embarrass myself here on this episode of the EdUp Experience. Ladies and gentlemen, before I outro my guest, here he is. He's Joe Linhart. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a senior account executive at Advanced 360 Education. Joe, thanks for co-hosting with me, my friend.
Absolutely. And just on behalf of Advanced 360 Education, we're really proud to sponsor EdUp. It's a great opportunity to spend time with you and Tim today. And certainly if anyone out there has any kind of marketing needs for your college or university, we do virtually everything. And so I'd love to talk to you sometime. Connect with me on LinkedIn, or certainly you can find us online at www.a360education.com.
And ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, Tim Kalil. See that? That's called recovery. He's president of workforce and on-site programs at ACI Learning. Tim, how was your EdUp experience today, my friend?
Smooth. Enjoyable. Smooth. Thanks for having me.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.
Lead Squared isn't only an enrollment CRM. It's a technology that will allow you to optimize your entire front-end student lifecycle by providing decision makers with real-time customizable dashboards. Forecasting, measuring, and optimizing for key activities will increase retention and revenue, and Lead Squared will lower technology costs simultaneously. Not only can Lead Squared align with existing admissions processes, but the technology will also help you innovate beyond what you thought was possible. The ability to access data on your phone will keep you connected, and when you add in the world-class customer service, Lead Squared transcends being a technology. It's an experience. Check them out at leadsquared.com.